All right, so I'm going to go ahead. We're going to get started. As some of you might have seen on Facebook, and I'm going to turn this a little bit so you guys have okay. So it's still working. Okay. Yeah, as you can see behind me, we have a beautiful brand new TV. If you saw on Facebook, we redid our whole training center. So we shifted everything. We moved everything around. We've got a big TV for those of us that are going blind with age. That's me. And we've completely rebuilt the area so that we have a podcast studio now, which is what you guys are all here for today. So we've got a beautiful, the little side room that's upstairs is all set up so that you can come in, use the studio, use me if you need it, and record a podcast. But then you can see just behind me, we've got the whole studio set up so that it's more user friendly. So you've got all the tripods you're going to need, lots of easy lighting to use. And we've got 3 backdrops for you to use right now as well. So lots of movement here at Jones & Company, lots of stuff for you guys to use, lots of stuff to make you more successful. So let's hop on into the podcasts. So show of hands, since I can't hear you guys, how many of you are currently listening to podcasts? Anybody? Steve is? Okay. Park's turning her camera on just screen. Barbie, you listening to stuff? Okay, good. Okay. So thankfully you guys have a little bit of taste when it comes to podcasts. I am going to start with the basics and work our way up for those of you who have literally never listened to a podcast in your life. Because I know I had a few people, like literally when we said we were going to do this podcast class, they said, what is a podcast? So we're going to start with the basics. We're going to work it into real estate and figure out how it can help you in your business and help you get more leads, make you more successful, and just help get you dipping your toe into the water of podcasts. So I'm going to share my screen for you real quick. Okay. All right, let me put your faces back up so I can see you. All right, so everybody can see my screen good? We're all set? Perfect. Okay, so podcasts for real estate. Let's talk about what is a podcast for those of you that haven't listened to them yet. Podcasts are a digital audio recorded media that is distributed out to the masses for a variety of devices. A lot of people who have started getting into podcasts lately have referred to it as, oh, it's like radio talk show, but made for smart devices. Probably the best description I've heard of it. It is made for you to record via audio, and we're going to go through how to distribute it out to the masses, but really it's just an audio recording. So for those of you who are terrified of the camera, this is a great way to get your knowledge out there and to get your voice out there and get out in front of people, because you don't have to be on camera. Joe Sansone always says that he has a face made for radio. So I always told him that he'd be really good at podcasts, right? So it's intended to be downloaded and then listened to at the listener's choice of time. So it is not live like radio. It is recorded, it is published, and that it is made to listen to whenever people have time. I find myself a lot listening to podcasts in the morning on my drive through to work, especially right now in season. I have lots of extra time when driving because we're all sitting at lights, or if you're traveling to and from. It's a great way to just pack in the knowledge or pack in, what it is that you're looking for while you're on the go. A lot of people will download them to their phone because then, if they're in a place where they don't have Wi-Fi, they can listen to them when people are flying. They listen to podcasts a lot because you download it, you get to listen to it, it's in your phone. Then once you listen to it, it goes back into the cloud. So that is kind of the gist of what podcasts are. But what do podcasts have to do with real estate is really what we want to get into today. So first and foremost, with anything that you're going to get into, you want to follow other people that are doing what you want to do, right? Follow by example, who's doing it right, who's doing it best. So these are some great podcasts that I suggest you guys follow. The first is the Royal Palm Cast. That is our local association's own podcast. They actually have 2 of them, but this one's going to be the best one for you to listen to. They have great structure. They've got great sound. They know what they're doing. So if it's going to be great knowledge for you because they talk about things that are great for realtors. Anybody who's a member of the association, they go over benefits. They do interviews with our top insurance people, our top mortgage people. I knew that was going to happen. They go through all of our top.
That's why the brokers are here.
Yeah, brokers are for broke stuff, right? All right, we won't do that again. So they go through and they interview lots of people, but what's great is they have a great format. So they've got an intro, they've got an outro, they've got a commercial break. They have great structure. They do the same things every podcast. So it's just really great for you to figure out, okay, this is how a podcast is supposed to work. This is how a podcast is supposed to be structured. It's a great thing to follow along with. Lee Brown also has a podcast. For those of you who haven't seen her in person, she's hilarious. She's funny. She's got a twang, and she's got a podcast called Crazy Shit in Real Estate. So in that podcast, what she does is she interviews other real estate agents, and they tell the craziest stories that they've ever experienced in real estate, which is great because sometimes we need to know we're not alone. So this isn't going to give you any kind of real estate knowledge. It's just going to give you a good laugh, but she's really good on the mic. She's got good structure, and it's going to give you a different idea of what you can do with podcasts. It's a Good Life with Brian Buffini. He is a real estate coach. Most of us know him, and he will, give you lots of knowledge of what to do as a real estate agent, but he also does interviews with Dr. Lawrence Yoon and who was our Florida Realtors guy? Brad O'Connor. He interviews with Brad O'Connor. So he interviews with our top economists and does lots of forecasting. So lots of great knowledge for real estate and how to do your career. He's got a great structure, and he's one of the top out there. Now, the number1 real estate podcast right now that's out there, which is based on listeners and subscribers and plays, right? That's how they base these things. That is going to be these guys on the far side. So I would go ahead and download their podcast. They interview like investors and entrepreneurs, people who are out there buying and really involved in real estate. So they're not just interviewing realtors. They are two realtors interviewing people who are out there buying property, and what kind of things they're learning, what they're seeing, what they're feeling, and what stories they have. So another great podcast to follow. But what these are going to do is help give you structure of how a podcast should be run, what it sounds like, and just give you a good idea. So I'm sure if you guys like Barb and Steve are already listening to podcasts, you probably have some really great ones. If you have a favorite one that you like to listen to, drop it in the chat. But follow by example. What other people are doing that's successful can really help you be just as successful. So what is it that you're going to be able to bring to the table here? Let's go ahead and move your pretty faces over to this side. Okay, so your listeners, they want to be educated and entertained. So a lot of times people will start up a podcast and it kind of goes nowhere and it falls to the wayside and it flops. And what I see with that a lot, for the ones that fail, they're podcasts where they just kind of get on the mic and talk about themselves, or they just kind of ramble on. And there's got to be a point to your podcast. So they want to be educated. That's why people are listening, right? They're looking to learn more. They're looking to hear more. They don't want to hear the same things they already know, or just hear what it's like in your day-to-day life. So you've got to figure out what kind of topic you want to go after in real estate. So you can just simply do market updates. I was searching through the Apple podcasts, and right now there's really no one in Southwest Florida, or pick a specific city: Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Lehigh. Steve, you've got the Villages. I did not look in the Villages, but you can give it a look. I don't see anybody who's doing specifically an area podcast, like, market updates for Southwest Florida or real estate in Southwest Florida. I searched by all those keywords and we have nothing. So there is room for you, certainly. You can also do interviews with professionals. Our Realtor Association podcast does that. They interview people in insurance, people in mortgage, but that is more so their intended user and listener is the members of the association and trying to introduce, new business partners for us. So it's probably a different spectrum of questions, a whole different feel to it. You could interview them as far as, hey, this is so-and-so with insurance and they're part of my team. We're going to ask like cutting edge questions that you guys have today and talk to the consumer. Who are you trying to attract, right? So talk about flood insurance, ask those questions that your customers are asking you every day. So when people listen and they're getting those and they're going through the buying process or they're starting the buying process, they have those questions, they're finding the answers on your podcast, right? What's going on with flood insurance? I hear that it's going through the roof and it's really scary, so I probably shouldn't buy a house, right? No, let's talk to the pros and we'll get it figured out for you. Give it a listen. You can also interview with customers, which could be fun. So interviewing with them if they have a crazy story, something that they went through or what their experience was. People want to know what other people are going through in this crazy market, especially. They want to know what other people are doing or what they found, what the experience was, so that they can know what to expect. So don't be afraid to interview your customers, especially if you start getting customers from your podcast. They'll feel like a star if you put them on the podcast that they listen to every day. All right, so community information. This could cover a plethora of topics. You could just become the community expert rather than just marketing yourself as a real estate expert. So you could go through and break down the communities. Each podcast could be you covering a different community. What's going on in Whiskey Creek and why should I live in Whiskey Creek? What's going on in, what's your favorite community, JJ? Favorite community? Miramar Lakes. What's going on in Miramar Lakes and why should I live there? You could cover amenities, you could cover events, you could cover different things, go through all the different communities in Lee County. That's something we're getting questioned about a lot. People are coming into town, they don't know what to expect. They know we have great communities with great amenities, but what community do I want? Well, if they start searching Whiskey Creek, boom, you pop up with your podcast. All they have to do is hit play and they get to listen to a quick little infomercial on what's going on there. And next thing you know, they're calling you because you know everything there is to know about Miramar Lakes or Whiskey Creek or what have you. But you could also, aside from just breaking it down community to community, you could cover the different cities in Southwest Florida. For those of us that are not afraid to cover anything from Punta Gorda all the way down to Naples, you got plenty of cities in between to cover. So you could do anything from facts about the communities in each area, like the amenities we talked about, or you could be that person that does a recap each week right before the weekend about what events are going on in Lee County this weekend, and everybody listens in. So it depends on if you want things to be more time stamped, like an events podcast, or do you want things that are going to last forever and have a longer shelf life? It depends on what user you're trying to drag in. So investor advice. There's a lot of podcasts out there for investors, or how to make money in real estate, how to get rich quick, and all these people that are like life coaches. I don't see any real tours out there doing these podcasts or doing things for investors that are area specific. Of course, there's plenty of information out there about how you can be an investor, how you calculate things, and the basic concepts of it. But that's different area to area. And if somebody is looking to invest in Southwest Florida and you've got the podcast for it, they're coming to you, or the Villages, or Miami. We've got everybody on here today. So any kind of investor advice would be great. Or topics on the process of real estate, right? People are so lost in what to expect from list to close. There are 100 steps. Some of us have those checklists and app files. Do a podcast on each one of those different checkpoints. So every time a user listens in, they're going from step 1 to step 25 of what to expect when listing their house or going to buy a house, depending on who you're trying to attract. So that is just a starting list of what you can kind of accomplish as far as material. That's where everybody struggles the most. It's like, okay, I want to start a podcast, or okay, I want to start a YouTube channel, but what am I going to talk about? You have so much knowledge. You just don't realize what knowledge you have because you're using it every day. To you, it's common knowledge. To the public, it's not common knowledge. So just take a pen and a pad and start to jot it down. Just start doing a brain dump, because once it starts coming out, you'll realize it'll just start flowing. Start to create this list of ideas of different things you want to cover. Start from the basics and get more complicated, or, if it's going to be the community things, just start to list out your favorite communities, get a whole page of ideas so that you feel more confident when you start making material and you're ready to go. There is also, if I close out of this slide, Inman has this great article that I've used before. This is, scroll back to the top here, 101 blog post ideas for real estate content creation. I will go ahead and send it out to you guys as well, or you can just Google Inman 101 blog post ideas. Of course, it says blog post ideas, but all of these topics are anything that you can talk about for hours on or make a YouTube video on. These ideas can be used for anything. So if you're feeling dry on content and not sure what to talk about, you could literally Google it and find thousands of topics. One Google search and I found an Inman article on it, and there were hundreds of other pages to bring up. So if you're feeling dry on content, just turn to the internet. They'll tell you what people are looking for easily. All right, let's check the chat. Nothing yet. Let me know if you guys have any questions, just stop me. Or if you guys have any great ideas, don't keep them to yourself, share with the world. All right, so then we move on to, once you've got the idea and you kind of have a feel for what you want to do, you've got to build your channel. So how are you building your channel? First, you want to talk about what is your niche. We kind of covered this a little bit in the previous slide, but what is it that you specialize in? I know we've got people that work with flippers a lot. We've got people who work with investors. We got people who specialize in first-time home buyers. Think about what it is that your niche is, but more importantly, what customers are you looking to attract? Christina, I see you're on here, so I'm going to use you as an example. So you think about what is your niche. Christina started in the industry. We called her the dirt queen because she was doing fabulous at lots and listing some really great lots. But does she want to create a podcast on dirt and talk about all the different things that could go wrong with the dirt deal? Oh, that would be a fun title for a podcast, Dirt Deals. Maybe, but if she's looking to get away from dirt and she's looking to, get into maybe like luxury listings or, whatever that next step is, well, then don't do the podcast on dirt, do the podcast on, what customers you are looking to attract. So you need to get into the brain of the customer you're looking to attract and figure out, okay, what information do they need? What is going to attract them? And what are they going to listen to, right? So first, put some structure to your podcast. I love to tell everybody, just get started, right? Don't overthink it. When it comes to YouTube, when it comes to podcasts, when it comes to social media, don't overthink it, just do it. Because otherwise you will plan for years to come and it'll never happen, right? But do a little bit of planning when it comes to your podcast. You have a little bit of structure. People, once you start putting material out there, that's what's going to be expected of you. And then that's what people are going to continue to come back for. As far as, gaining your users and your listeners, you need to have some sort of consistency. So what's your concept or your theme going to be? What kind of podcast are you going to create? Is it going to be for investors? Is it going to be about general real estate? Is it going to be about the community? What kind of concept and theme are you going for with all of your material? What is your name of your podcast going to be? I'm finding in the podcast world, a lot of people need clever names. So start to put a little bit of thought into it. Bounce things off of us. If you're like, okay, I want to do a podcast about this. We'll help you brainstorm some ideas. I always love to use my husband. He comes up with creative things because he's so far removed. He doesn't think about it analytically. We're like in the real estate world and he's like, do this, and it's off the wall. So, bounce it off your friends, bounce it off your spouses, have them come up with a fun name for you. I think we were talking about naming our podcast for Jones & Co. Realty. It was gonna be like Jones & for Real Estate or something like that. Do something fun, make people smile, catch them right out of the gate. So then your format is going to be really important. So in our association's podcast, their format is interview style, right? So you have Jerry who interviews anybody. So I was on their most recent podcast talking about YPN. Then he's interviewed insurance companies, mortgage companies, and interviewed our association president. So what he does is they have the same opener every single podcast. And then they move into, he does like an intro of who he's interviewing, talks about them a little bit. And then they do some questions back and forth, questions that are preset. It's conversational, right? He just has a casual conversation with the person, asks them some questions. They do a commercial break. And then when they come back, they do fun questions. So they have that same format every time. If you're looking to do that, it can be a little bit of legwork, making sure you've got somebody to interview regularly, but it can be beneficial because you're not having to come up with the material every time. Your format could be just you talking with a script. You could be just doing market updates once a week, and that would be just you talking, and it would be scripted or non-scripted. So formats are very important. The user is attracted to certain type of formats. They're either attracted to like quick stats, quick information, or they're attracted to that conversational piece. You're going to see most of your podcasts are very conversational and interview pieces. So you're going to need other people to get in on your podcast. So then the last thing is going to be your podcast cover. You're going to need a piece of art. We're going to talk about where to put your podcast and stuff like that. When you're looking at podcasts, they have like a cover, like if you were to look at like a music album, same kind of concept. So those are some things to think about before you get on the mic, just to build your channel. All right, scheduling. This is everybody's favorite question. Yeah, I want to get into it, but how much time do I have to give this new thing? So podcasts are mostly successful at 20 to 30 minutes. That's where you're going to see the average length of your podcast. However, podcasts are new. Podcasts are made for 100 different personalities. So you can do whatever you please with this. I've seen podcasts where they do podcasts once a week and it's 5 minutes. And that's it. But that's what the user expects, right? There's consistency. So they know if they're hopping on and Barclay's giving Cape Coral market updates, they know that they can take 5 minutes every Monday and listen to their market update and go on with their day. They know that that's what to expect. But then you've got your 20 to 30 minute ones, which people are looking for more information. They know to expect that, and that's fine. I have seen other podcasts that are very involved and they are 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours. I don't have time for that. I don't know if you have time for that. If you do, great. If you're going to fully get into podcasts, great. The whole point is, are you going to keep the user listening? Do you have valuable information? Are you just taking the same piece of information and, like they used to say in college, like, oh, fluff it up, just add useless information around your one argument you have? You can't do that in podcasts because people are going to go, oh, okay, this is just repetitive. We're shutting it off. If you can keep the user engaged and you have plenty of new points to talk about, talk for as long as you want. Just keep it consistent each time you post a podcast so that your user knows what to expect. So then it's going to be about creating a habit for not only yourself, but your users. Your users are going to expect a certain amount from you. If you put it out there of, hey, we're doing a podcast once a week, they're expecting that. Monday morning, they're looking for your podcast, or, if you do Wednesdays, whatever it is, you're creating a habit for yourself so that you're keeping yourself in check and you're not letting your podcast flop and it's consistent. But then your user is kind of creating a schedule in themselves. So on Wednesday, they know to look forward to your podcast or whatever day it may be. So as far as how often to post, there is a lot of podcasts that are seeing great success in doing a weekly or bi-weekly. However, there are podcasts that do all kinds of different things. My husband listens to sports podcasts, which to me are just like, yeah, Dave's face. I'm like, oh God. So one of the podcasts he listens to, they publish every morning, and they have this whole catchphrase where it's like, you're getting your morning dose of news. Remember to listen to us every morning. They have this catchphrase. So John literally repeats it. He's like, oh, every morning I got to listen to he repeats what they say. So your catchphrases do stick with people. And if you put your schedule into your catchphrase of, oh, every Monday, catch your market update Mondays, market Mondays, or whatever, make something catchy, it'll signify with your customer and get them into a schedule as well. So there are people that post podcasts every morning. There are people that do podcasts every month. It depends on what you're looking to do, what you're looking to accomplish. How fresh is the information that you're giving out? If you're doing market updates, probably once a week would be good. If you're covering the past week, you could do, a monthly market update if you wanted to as well. And you didn't want to do it but there's just got to be consistency into the schedule you're giving. Yes.
Question on the consistency.
Yeah.
You were talking about, because it's podcasting, it's like radio, like John was saying, listen every day.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like what you're saying is they need to do more than less as far as frequency.
Yeah. So JJ's question was talking about, it sounds like we need to do more than less as far as frequency. The users are consistently on the podcast apps. Once people are into podcasts, they're listening to it when they're driving, they're listening to it while they're working, if they can. They are consistently listening. So you should know that if they're listening to you, they probably follow a bunch of different podcasts, right? The more you're in front of them, the more you're top of their mind. So the more, the better. I kind of think every day is overkill in real estate. We don't have something to talk about every day. If you do, great. If you're like detail oriented and you can break down what happened in real estate yesterday, day to day, good for you. I really think in real estate, you're looking at weekly to bi-weekly. as far as doing market updates, or if you're doing topic specific, you can continue that kind of track, but the more the merrier for information that's out there, especially when you first start. You want to have like several episodes for them to be able to listen to. And then you'll start to see your subscriber rate go up, your play rate go up, your listener rate go up, and things like that. The more you put out there. I believe our association does a podcast once a month or every 2 weeks. Yeah, it's every couple of weeks. And they're putting out consistent content. So yeah. Any questions on scheduling from you guys? No. Okay.
Did you cover live versus recorded podcast?
Podcasts are all recorded.
Okay.
Yeah, made for the listener to use at their point. So
They don't have
there's
to
no
freak out
live.
about-
Yeah, there's no live. Just going back to the scheduling and stuff like that, there's no live. So you don't have to worry about promising people to be live at a certain point. So you have like all, let's say you decide you're going to do a weekly podcast, right? And you have that entire week really at any point to make your podcast. You don't have to sit down and be in front of a mic at a certain point. You just have to have it done by a certain point. And what's great about it not being live, once you get better at it, if you want to, you can mess up, you can edit it out, you can take it out, and then you can publish it with a clean product. Yeah. We're going to get into that part too. All right. So what do you need to start your podcast? So really, you don't need anything, first and foremost. You can simply just do this with your phone. I will show you guys a couple of apps here in a second, but you can just record stuff on your phone and upload that audio file into the podcast. The more involved you start getting, the more you start listening to other people's podcasts, you're going to want to get a little bit more involved right away, because you want to have intros and outros and music and all this other fancy stuff that these people with studios have. However, with this, I'm going to say, don't overthink it. Just record yourself and get the information out there and get started somewhere. I always love listening to podcasters' story of origin of, oh my gosh, they'll cover stories. And you remember when we first had our first podcast, it was just us and our phone mic, and there was no music, there was no nothing. And, everybody has growing pains. So just, if you can get out there, record yourself and start posting material, just so that you have the first couple of episodes. You'll get better and better with each episode for sure. So there are some apps that you can use. Road Reporter is available on both iPhone and Android. And then GarageBand is available on iPhone, and it's also available on Mac, but those are iPhone only. So, but do some research. There's a lot of different apps out there where you can just do audio recording and then either upload or send yourself the audio recording. I am going to go ahead and at the end, I will bring up, because I can't see the screen on there. At the end, I will bring up for you guys a couple of the apps and just show you how they work really quick. So if you decide that you want to go ahead and give yourself a podcast studio and do more than just your phone, getting a startup kit can cost you anywhere from $150 to $600. Once you really start getting involved, there are some guys that I've heard that talk about how they started up their podcast business and where they're at now, and they have $10,000 studios. That's a little crazy. Those are for people who monetize off of podcasts, make their lives and their livings off of podcasts, and you don't need that. We had Taco Tuesday a couple weeks ago, and while we were at Scotty Beer Works, these guys pulled up in a van, like one of those travel vans, real cute. And the two of them got out and they just started unloading crazy amounts of podcast material, mics, stands, backdrops, all kinds of stuff. And we were like, what's going on here? Well, they were a traveling podcast group, and they went from brewery to brewery, interviewing the owners of breweries and what they do and what they specialize in and what makes them so special. And the name of their podcast was What's a Brewin'? And so I thought that was really cool, but that's what they do for a living. They monetize off of it. They sell commercials on their podcasts, and they make all kinds of money off of their podcasts. And that's all they do. They have thousands and thousands and thousands of listeners and people who want to know about the different breweries all across the nation. And they just travel in their van and record stuff. So I'm sure their studio costs a lot, but you don't need anything like that to start up your real estate podcast. You can simply start with, you're going to need a mic stand, a headset, and an audio box. So if you start shopping on Amazon, they sell podcast kits. And you've got to pay attention to if you're going to need one mic or two mics, depending on your format. If you're only ever going to record yourself, you can get a simple USB mic. The USB plugs right into your computer and you can record right onto your computer. However, if you are going to do multiple recordings, you can't use a USB mic because a USB mic is made for one and one mic alone. You're going to need an XLR mic, you're going to need auxiliary cables, and you're going to need an audio box to filter through that stuff. I'm not going to get too much into the details of that today because that can be a whole class on its own of how to set up your podcast studio. But those are some simple materials that you would need to get started. However, we have that studio here for you at Jones & Company Realty, so you can pop in and use it at any time. We do have, without dropping it this time, we do have our podcast mic, which is a Rode mic, which is the same company that provides the app for your phone for recording. But we have the whole mic stand, the whole mic setup for you. We have the audio box. And so we've got two of these. So if you want to interview somebody or you just want to come in and record yourself, you certainly can. We've got in the back here, we've got the two mics, the audio box, everything's ready to go. So you can just walk in, plug the audio box into your computer, start up your favorite program and start recording. If that seems very overwhelming to you, then just call me and we'll work through that. So then the software that you're going to need to start up a podcast, you're going to have to figure out some way to get the podcast out to all the places and distribute out to all the places where people listen. So the software that you're going to want to start with is a hosting site. So that would be Buzzsprout is the top one right now. That's the one that we're using. That's the one our association uses. Every single person I talk to, they use Buzzsprout. You can start an account with Buzzsprout for free, and you get a certain amount of hours of recording per month. I think free, it's 2 to 3 hours. Don't quote me on that, but it's a couple of hours for free you get, and they only host it for 90 days and then it deletes. However, if you start paying for an account, it can go anywhere from $8 to $25 a month. Simply $8 a month will allow your podcast to live on forever and infinity, give you a lot more recording time, and a few other fun features. Other programs that host the podcasts are going to be Podbean and Captivate. These sites are really simple. You can just take your audio file, upload it, give it a title, give it a description, enter in some stuff and click publish, and boom, it's out there in the podcast world for you. They do make it super, super easy. So the next software that you're going to want to look at is editing and programming. So you've got Audacity. I am using Adobe Audition, and then you've got GarageBand, which is free on the Mac. Audacity is free. If you Google it, there's a download. You can download that for free. Adobe Audition is $10 a month. If you've already got their whole package, that's a different thing for like photos, videos, Audition. It comes with the Creative Cloud, but there are lots of different programs out there that you can use once you want to start getting into that. So that would mean not just recording yourself on the phone and uploading it, or recording yourself on a mic and uploading it. It would mean putting it into a program, cutting out the dead space. If you make mistakes, cutting that out, deleting that out, adding intros, adding outros, adding music, adding sound effects. Editing program can get a little out of hand. I will have to admit, I've had to watch a lot of YouTube videos and do a lot of self-studying just to figure out how to use different editing programs. So if you wanted to start getting into that, that's the software you're going to look at. But like I said, you can simply start with your phone. You can record yourself. Maybe you have the same scripted intro that you're going to say each time, like, hey, this is Steve Venna. We're in the Villages and we're talking market stats. Let's go. And you just have that same intro you say every time. And then you say what you need to say, you stop the recording and you upload that to Buzzsprout. It can be that easy. But if you want to get into editing, those are some great programs to get into. Additional recording programs are going to be Zoom and Squadcast. So what these are going to do for you is if you want to interview somebody and you can't bring them in with you, right? So let's say I want to interview somebody who's all the way in Tennessee and talk about their market. What you can do is Zoom them like we are right now. And when you save it to the cloud, there's, whole options in Zoom. So it'll ask you, do you want to record this? Like we're recording this right now. You say yes. When you go to download it, it gives you 3 files. It gives you the text file from the chat. Yes, the chat is always saved for those of you that don't know and privately chat people. If I own the Zoom, I'm seeing your chats. It gives you the video audio file. So it'll give you this whole thing that you're seeing right now, which is what you see we upload to YouTube. But then separately, it gives you the audio file. If you just wanted to download the audio file, you can do a Zoom with somebody, interview them wherever they're at, download that audio file and upload it right into Buzzsprout, and boom, you've got an interview out there in the podcast world. So Squadcast does the same thing. From my understanding, Squadcast costs. Zoom you can do for free. So Zoom allows you a free profile where you can record and host meetings for up to, I believe the free profile is like 5 or 10 people, which you would never want to have that many people on a podcast. But you can host meetings that are up to 40 minutes for free. So if you decide that you need more than that, Zoom is simply $10 a month. So those are different programs that you're going to use to get you up and started. Any questions so far? Has anybody done any kind of audio, any show of hands, anybody done any kind of audio recording on their phone before? Steve has, okay. All right, so if you're not familiar with that, I'm always a phone call away. I'm gonna show you guys how to use the Rode mic recorder app in just a second. But some of our phones, everybody's, iPhone, everybody's iPhone's the same. Android, everybody's got a different phone. So your phone may have something already built into it for audio recording. You can, if you wanted to, just use your camera and then try to split out the audio. But if you're not tech savvy, I don't suggest doing it. But just do a little bit of research on what your phone capabilities already have. Might be more user-friendly with your phone, and then go from there. Everybody that has an iPhone loves GarageBand because GarageBand has some editing features in it aside from just recording, but that's going to be iPhone only. Okay. All right. So next, this is an example of all of the different channels where people can find podcasts, right? So I use Buzzsprout. All the other hosting sites, they're going to do the same thing. They are going to feed out to all of these different websites. So I listen to podcasts on Apple Podcasts. It's an app that's automatically on my iPhone. I open up the podcast app on Apple and I can search for every single podcast that's ever created and distributed. Google has the same. You've got the Google Podcasts app, but then a lot of people I know use Spotify and iHeartRadio. There's all of these other places. It's just like social media. There's hundreds of places where you can get your material. So you want to make sure you're on whatever site your user is using, but your top ones right now are going to be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartMusic, and then Google Podcasts. So those are all covered. So when you upload something into Buzzsprout, Buzzsprout just hosts it. They just hold your podcast. People don't really go to Buzzsprout to listen to it. It just hosts your podcast and it distributes it out to everybody. A lot of us are familiar with this scenario based on our MLS, right? A lot of users don't go or get access to MLS, but our MLS sends it out to all the sites that people are using. Same concept. Any questions on how that works? All right. So aside from just being a podcast, you can take this material that you're going to put a lot of time into and make it into more than just a podcast. You can video record yourself while you are doing the podcast and split that out and put it onto YouTube. So what a lot of people do is they have a beautiful studio set up with their mic. They put the camera on, the camera records. You've got your audio recording. They put the two together and they put that onto YouTube. And then they take just the audio recording and they put that out in a podcast. So for those of us that are thinking, well, how many people really use podcasts? And you're afraid that you're really not going to hit the mark. Well, you can gain traction through YouTube. We know there's millions of people on YouTube as well, and just gives you more material. You can also transcript your audio for a blog. A lot of what we're talking about is really blog material, and why we create the wheel. You've got people who like to read, you've got people who like to listen, you've got people who like to watch. So if you're getting on the mic and you're putting in the effort, you might as well cover all three bases at once. So you can also take your video and splice it into like little pieces and teaser trailers and put that out on social media, put that out on TikTok. You know, maybe you're interviewing somebody and like they say something really funny. You can take like 10 seconds of the video where they crack a joke or make something really funny and say, hey, catch my interview, you know, with Steve Venna, expert in the villages, out on your favorite podcast app. And you could start to drive users to your podcast through that sense, which kind of brings us to our next point, gaining your audience. So just like with anything new, if you go out and you create a Facebook page, you're not going to have hundreds of people there right away. You're not going to have hundreds of followers on your YouTube channel with your first YouTube post. It's going to be the same thing with podcasts. You've got to gain your audience. You've got to get people interested. Once you get the people you know interested, you start getting some followers, then you're going to get organic followers. You're going to get organic engagement. You'll start showing up on searches and you'll start going to the top of that algorithm, right? Works just the same. So you're going to want to encourage people to subscribe to your channel, because when I subscribe to people's channel on my Apple Podcasts, anytime somebody posts a new episode, I get a notification and it goes into my library. So until I watch it, it's there waiting for me. So the more subscribers you have, the more loyal listeners you're going to have. You want to post it out there on social media so people know that you have a podcast, people know where to find you. You might get people in the podcast that have never listened to podcasts before, and you are also going to experience people who have listened to hundreds of podcasts that are like, oh, great, Barb's got a podcast now. And then they go out there and they follow you. I do suggest emailing it out to everybody. Do like a fun announcement. Hey, I got a new show. It's premiering this week. Go check it out. You know, create lots of excitement about it. You're going to put work and effort into it. People should be just as excited as you are. But you can also add it to your signature. So anytime you're communicating with people, it's, hey, listen to my podcast. That way they're listening to you regularly. Even if you weren't maybe able to follow up with them that week, they still heard you that week on your podcast. So last but certainly not least, it's what we're doing for you guys when it comes to podcasts. If it's a new concept for you, it may seem very overwhelming. If you have listened to podcasts before, it's like, well, I thought about it, but I don't know what's involved. No worries. Like I said, you can just get started on your phone, but we've got more than that here for you. We've got a whole podcast studio. So like I said, we've got the 2 mic setups. They're really, really nice mics. High quality sounds. We've got 2 headsets and we've got the audio box. So you can go ahead and interview people here. You can come in and just do your own podcast. Once it starts getting busy, we'll set up a scheduler calendar and app files for it. So you can schedule your time. We've already got a few people coming in to use it. But we also have the video studio here. So all the equipment is here for you to make a video if you wanted to make a commercial for it, or if you wanted to record something, but all of that stuff simply turns around and faces the podcast studio. So you can record yourself for YouTube while you're making your podcast and do that whole multimedia thing. So you've got the podcast, the video, and then transcribe it. If you need to, you can simply call me and we can schedule a workshop. I can show you how to use all the equipment. And we can sit down and help you do your first podcast and help you learn it so that you're self-sufficient. Or if you're going to need more than that, just give us a call as far as doing the recordings for you and helping you through that process. But we're here to hold your hand and do whatever it is you may need. If it seems intimidating, then all I need you to do is set up what you're going to talk about, come in, schedule time with me, and we'll sit down and I'll record the whole thing for you. And I'll show you how it works. I promise you it is not as scary as it needs to be. And you can make it as involved or not involved as you want. If you say, hey, I just want to do the podcast, don't turn the camera on. I'll just start crying if my face is on the camera. That's fine. We can just do a podcast. But I do encourage you guys to come in and use what we have for you. All kinds of material here just waiting to help your business. So do we have any questions? I am going to show you guys some apps, but if you have any questions, go ahead and throw those in the chat. I'm gonna stop the screen share here. You guys are set. Okay. So I am going to open up. I'm going to screencast for everybody here, and then I will show the camera some of the apps that will make your life a little easier. All right, so our first one is going to be Road Reporter. I know you guys can't see it on there. So that's this tan one. Oh, let me turn this light off so that you guys can see better. All right. So we've got Road Reporter right down here. She's tan screen. And when you open that, really easy to use. It literally has a big record button. You can see, it's going to be really bright on your screen, goodness gracious. So you can see the big record button. You can see your volume. So you can tell if you're being too quiet, if you're too far from the mic, if you're close enough. And then up at the top, it's got the time. So if you're trying to make a 5-minute podcast, 20-minute podcast, whatever it is that you may be trying to make, it'll display that for you easy peasy. So all I'm going to do is I am going to hit our record button and it starts. And you can see there's a big pause button displayed there now. My volume is going up and down. I'm a little too close to the mic and I'm very loud today. So that's like hitting the red zone. And we've got our timer up here, and then you can see the sound bites running across the top. I'm not sure if you guys can really see that, but we're trying. So once you're done, you just hit the pause button and the screen goes back to normal, and then you can continue recording. So you can pause, take a breather, and then hit record again and continue on that same document. When you're done, there's an end button up in the top corner. So we're just going to click end, and it just goes back to the normal screen. Running along the bottom, we have library, record, and settings. We go to library, and all it does is timestamp what we've recorded. So any recording that we've made, I'll go ahead and click on the one today. You can hit play, you can delete it, or you can send it out. There's that little send button. So I just email it to myself. I download the audio file on my computer and plug it right into Buzzsprout. It can be as easy as that. So if you download Road Reporter, RODE Reporter, then all you have to do is press the record button, talk, do your podcast, stop it, end it, and send it. It can be that simple. However, if you wanted to get a little bit more involved, like I said, then you're going to want to download one of those programs so that you may edit up your audio. But you don't need to buy all the studio stuff. You can still simply use your phone and then start to get a little bit more tech savvy by using those programs. Audacity's free, or Adobe, any one of those, and you can learn how to cut and splice and add together different pieces so that you have a cleaner cut podcast. But you still wouldn't need a mic at that point. You could still simply use your phone. However, we've got really nice mics here, so I do suggest just coming in and using them. Or, there's no need to buy your own. There's no need to just use your phone. Come in and use the nice mics. So that is everything that I have for you guys today. We are in just under an hour. Thank you, everyone, for coming out and joining us today on Zoom. And give us a holler if you need anything. Bye.